We're live for the first episode of our rebrand for Lever Up Your Life, a show where we're talking about how you leverage people, finances, resources to improve your business and your personal life. And this week, I'm super excited to have Khush on. If you're not already familiar, which you very well may be, former professional tennis player and landlord with many, many doors under her belt, super involved in real estate from software side of things, from actively doing deals, from previously wholesale on single family, now doing more land deals. So, Kush, it's a pleasure to have you on.
Thanks so much, Jared. I appreciate this opportunity. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, let's just start this off. Like we're talking about, the topic of this show is why leverage is the only way. So, you're a good way into your real estate journey. Would you have been able to get here if it wasn't for leverage?
No, absolutely not. I think simple way you have to leverage your time, bringing on people that can help you along the process. This game of real estate is not a game to be played alone. Especially not if you want to get far. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, nailed it on the head.
yeah,
I know. Is that the right expression? Nailed it on the head. I think
yeah.
so. I know. Like one of the things that I realized. So the first fix and flip deal I ever did, I was like, all right, I need to go on site. I need to manage the contractor. I need to do this. I need to do that. It's like not only did I lose money, but then I lost all this time doing it. Uh, I don't have nearly as much experience as you, but my second one, I spent almost no time on it because I leveraged other people and their skills. And same, I almost put none of my own money into it because I leveraged different resources, different capital sources, capital partners. Like I did almost nothing. And what I've learned from me, who's still like, I'm pretty early on in my real estate journey, the people who are successful in this, they leverage. And we're not just talking about getting debt, right? It's like people, resources, etc. What was like when you look back on your journey, at what point in time did you realize like, hey, I've got to figure out ways to get people to help me, to leverage other people's skill and knowledge? Like what was the backstory on that?
Well, first of all, I think none of us are like born into, the real estate world unless you come from a family that has that and you just grow up with that around you. But as an immigrant coming to this country, you first of all, you need to gain knowledge, and knowledge can't be, again, you can't just like learn it out of a book. You have to learn it, especially with real estate. You have to learn it from other people, other mentors, and other people that are physically doing it,
Yeah.
right? And there's so much knowledge out there. You don't sometimes know exactly, what to listen to and what to do. And I think, of course, it's important to take action, but I think having mentors, first of all, is
Mhm.
super important, and making sure that you can get to that next level and be able to ask the questions you need to ask when you're stuck or when you're not sure. Right. And I think like that's the first thing is surrounding yourself with the right people right from the beginning.
Yeah.
Um, because again, everyone has different techniques and different things, but I think if you specifically pick a mentor that you know has done it and has been successful, I think leveraging their knowledge, if that means, either getting them in on a deal and working out some kind of a split, or whether it's, a
Yeah.
payment or a coaching program or whatever it is, I think like that's literally your entryway in, right? And
Yeah.
so that's kind of what we did is we figured out who was doing what we wanted to do, and then we learned from them, right? And it was,
Who
you
was
know,
that? Who was that for you initially?
oh gosh. So, you know, so many coaches, you know, uh,
That's hey, look, somebody who's successful, that's the exact response that I would expect to hear from them. So many coaches.
yeah, so many coaches. I mean, you have people, doing seller finance, you have people, wholesaling, flipping, and you're like figuring out, do I do all? Do I do everything? Do I do one thing? Right.
Yeah.
And I think a good coach will probably tell you that pick a specific niche and then just go deep in it. Right.
Yeah.
So for us, like when I started with my brother, we did the wholesaling route. And yes, there's a lot of little squirrels that you can take along the way, like, oh, this property might be more, you know, might yield us more money if we flip it. But then the
Yeah.
question is, we don't know anything about flipping. We don't even
Yeah.
know if the contractor, what they're telling us needs to be done is even needs to be done. Like, how do you
Yeah.
know? Right. So it's like figure out a niche and at least just get in as many reps as you can and just like
Yeah.
putting your knowledge to action, and just kind of like taking action at the end of the day, you know?
Yeah.
But it's like every bit of knowledge you get, and again, the whole object of leverage is that you take something and the output is multiple times more, not one
Yeah.
for one, you know?
Yes.
And so any bit of knowledge that we learned, we applied it in so many different ways so that we were really able to like utilize even one coaching program, for example, to like, you know, help us get that first year. Like we literally just bought an online course that maybe costs like $500, $2,000. And then, and we're able to, you know, wholesale 7 properties the first year,
Yeah.
you know, and then exponentially reinvested that money into a more like hands-on mastermind.
Yeah.
That was a heftier spend. It was about 20,000. But then the next year we were able to do like 30 deals, you know? So it's like just taking that little bit of knowledge and just really applying it over and over again, you
Yeah.
know?
I love the framework. Literally, the whole point is to put some amount in and get a higher yield out.
That's it. ROI. That's what we do in real estate. It's not about spend, it's about ROI. So you're always looking on ways to, you know, and that's investments in general, right? That's why we're called investors, because we might have different techniques and we might have different approaches to whether it's properties or land or, you know, multifamilies or whatever it is. And the whole goal is to take that input and multiply it and invest that so that that gives you a larger return on investment. So, yeah.
Yeah, and then you do that for a few years and you got 20 doors in Clearwater, you know? Easy
Yeah,
peasy.
25 yeah, 25 doors, not easy peasy for sure. That first property I bought, first 4 unit I bought, like every day I drive past it just to make sure it hadn't burned down. You know, it was, and then I
And
talked to a friend of mine and he's like, "You're crazy." He's like, "You have insurance on this property, right?" I'm like, "Yeah, of course." Like, there's no way I would have gotten a bank loan. He's like, "Yeah, so don't worry, it'll be fine." And
it actually is pretty funny. I think this is true for most people when they buy their first rental. I don't have a rental property, but I'm on property number 2 right now. But in general, like you're like, oh my God, like owning all these properties, like how do I possibly like, there's so much going on. There's so much. And then once you actually have some property, you're like, yeah, you don't really need to think about it that often. Like, yeah, you should probably set up some systems to, maybe once every quarter or 6 months, send a repair guy through there, like whatever. But yeah, it is funny. Like that was an objection for me. I remember that. Like, oh, this is giving me anxiety thinking about having properties before you ever
yeah,
have properties.
and that's the thing. It's like you're never gonna know going into something like everything, like every nuance that's out there. But what happens when something breaks? Like if you're not a plumber, you're not an electrician, what are you gonna do? You're gonna hire someone who's an expert, right? It's the same thing,
Mhm.
is that surrounding yourself with the right people. First of all, I think people are also means of being able to leverage your relationships, your contacts, right? To be able to gain that extra knowledge or gain the thing that you lack. And I think that's one thing that people think in real estate, that you need to come here like knowing everything, you have to have the money. And I think that's where a lot of people don't start,
Mhm.
is that they're like, I don't have enough money, I don't have the knowledge. But it's like, you know, most people that have succeeded will tell you, just start somewhere. Start
Yeah.
somewhere. If it is a course and it's about learning, going on YouTube, you can get a ton of free videos and a ton of, you know, like free education that's literally out there for you. You know, just from that, and then offering to even just, I always tell people, like, just offer to like help someone. Say like, hey, you listen, I want to do this. Like, I see that you're already doing this. Like a flip, for example. I see that you're flipping properties. Could I just like shadow you on this project like for free? If you need me to go, you know, get stuff, order things, fetch stuff, like offer
Go
something.
for
Yeah, offer, like that's leverage in itself, right? You offer something that you have that they may need to get you that whatever piece they have that you need, right? Which is like
Yeah.
knowledge or experience or whatever that is, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah.
Low key, if you're tuned in, you're like, man, how could I ever break into these relationships? Literally just say, I will go by and make sure none of your plants are dying. Like they're watered. I would be like, thank you. That is honestly like low key. Dude, when you're
That's,
doing a
yeah,
flip,
that's so sweet. Yeah.
it sucks when you spend money on
Yeah.
plants and then they don't get water and they die and then it looks really bad and you have to redo it. But you're never gonna like go and check on that yourself, right?
And it's crazy. People are so willing to help you out for free. I can't tell you, like, obviously, we
Mm,
belong to the same group, the EIMG group with James
yeah.
Lascara, shout out. But just, just saying with something like that, it's like I've talked to so many people, even in the group, that are like, oh my God, I want to know how you do what you do. And I've literally offered, I'm like, you're welcome to shadow me. Like, just come
Yeah.
shadow me, like, you can even like take a copy, like get on my calendar, see what appointments I have and be like, hey, can I show up? Like, yeah, absolutely. Like,
Mm,
but how many people actually do that in reality, right? And that's like free education, you know?
yeah.
So, but that's the thing. It's like people think that you have to like pay hundreds and thousands of dollars for a program. And sure, it's great to have one mentor who kind of will somewhat hold your hand through the process, but you still have to actually show up and do it, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah,
So
you're only learning by doing deals, right? And this is not like some complicated thing. Find opportunities. That's it. There's so many of them.
yeah,
Um, I mean, yeah, for me starting, that was like literally doing acquisitions for somebody else's wholesale company. It's like I
yeah,
don't know anything, but I figured out pretty quickly how to get good on the phones and talk to people. And then I think the key thing here is like, here's the problem with the solution of like, I'm just going to join an expensive mastermind and then I'll download everything I need to know to do deals. It doesn't work like that. One, because you don't, until you have money on the line with a deal, you're not really vested. And really, if you really want to learn from a mentor, have them also have money vested in a deal, and you will see just how like they actually operate in a deal. That's where the real knowledge comes from. You
100%.
do a deal with someone who's legit. Like even for example, this flip that I'm doing with Jordan Garcia, he has a lot more experience than I do flipping, and we're both in it, which means we're aligned in making money. And like I'm teaching him some things, he's probably mostly teaching me some things about how he operates, etc. And we're in a deal together, so I get to see that. And it's not something where I could call up Jordan and be like, hey Jordan, like I want to fix and flip. I know you've done some of these in the past. Like, how do you do it? It's so different. Like get
And
into a deal with
what
somebody and
did
be
you bring
like,
to the table, just out of curiosity, in that?
me, good looks, good jokes from time to no, I'm just kidding. I found the deal. One of the things, if we want to talk about like resources, etc., I look at a lot of deals specifically just for fix and flip,
Sure.
and I frequently get first eyes on stuff. So I get to see deals before they're marketed pretty regularly, and I've also been able to like I only want the perfect deal. I want the deal that's not in the flood zone, that's a newer block.
So we got to do a deal together, is what you're saying. You
Yeah,
only
like
perfect deal.
if I like a deal, I'm not gonna say I have the James Lascara level of like how good this deal needs to be, but if it's anywhere close to commercial or multifamily or a busy road or anything, out, doesn't matter, dead. If it's not just like straight up cosmetic, dead. I'm not adding bathrooms. I'm not pulling permits. None of that crap. Like it needs to be a very, very straightforward deal where my worst case scenario, we're making money still. And so I found that opportunity and was able to get it under contract before I hit up Jordan. I was like, yo, dude, there's not a single thing about this deal that isn't like is a risk factor, I guess. So the biggest thing for me was like being able to have the expertise to be like, hey, here's all the common risks that I see, and these risks don't apply is much more telling than here. The underwriting says this makes money. That's like every flip ever. So that's what I brought. And then having the inside track on the hard money, being able to get us, the good terms with the inside track, and having the contact for Shastine and having worked with her before. So having her kind of already like set up, familiar with her process, etc. So
So, I mean, but the actual flip portion of it, which is the core root of this deal, you didn't know how to really go about the day-to-day stuff, right? And you didn't have those contacts, but
nope.
and you
I knew
didn't
how to
need
do
it.
it wrong. I did it wrong in the past. I knew how to do it the not right way.
Right, which is why you were smart enough to say, "You know what? I don't need to do this alone because
Yeah.
if I do it alone, there's a chance I might lose money."
Yeah.
Right? So you again, you leveraged your knowledge of running comps, getting deals early, and what you do, which is the hard money portion of it, right? And you brought it to somebody who you knew that you could trust, like actually running the flip, doing a
Yeah.
good job, right? And so it's like that's where real estate does not have to be does not have to be something you do alone. And
No.
it really shouldn't be because I think everyone can easily say they're not good at everything and every piece of it, right? Like we all have our specific talents in specific areas.
Yeah.
For me, it's sales and negotiation. Like I know I can try to negotiate the best deal possible that
Yeah.
I can get. And I know I'm really good at looking at the details, honestly, project managing if need be. And what I do full time or full time meaning like what I do really well in, which is manage rentals, aka
Yeah.
asset management, right? Which is making sure that every property is is maximizing profits
Yeah.
on every avenue, making sure we find tenants in time, the right tenants in time. Our risk is as low as possible. Units are kept in the best condition so that the turnover is really short, typically a
Yeah.
couple of days between tenants, just a quick
Mhm.
clean and touch up, right? Um, and honestly, just overall making sure that a property is managed as maximally best as possible, um, and those are some things that again, it's not everybody's expertise. And again, it wasn't my expertise when I started, but I've realized like what parts of it I'm good at, and being able
Yeah.
to leverage with other people that have capital. Raising capital, probably not my favorite thing to do. Can I do it? Sure, if I absolutely have to. But I mean, raising capital in a sense is also a lot like building relationships and sales
Yeah.
and things like that. But at the end of the day, my biggest passion is being able to like asset manage,
Yeah.
a property management, making sure that it's in house, it's not done by outside property management companies that don't have a stake in the actual you know profit of the property.
Yeah.
I think that's super key right now, especially when you're trying to cut down and keep costs low, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, I think leveraging is absolutely essential in succeeding because there's no way that I could do what I do without having other partners and people in place.
Yeah. You want to do something fun? Well, literally, I actually need help with something that I'm going to ask you about.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
this will be like a micro example of how to leverage.
Sure.
So I know only like I've done leasing and stuff a little bit. I used to manage some properties in Michigan, but it's not my expertise. I definitely don't know what the rental market is like right now at all.
Okay.
But I actually went into my leasing office. So I rent this apartment, right? Went into my leasing office. I was like, hey, my lease is up in uh, September or July or something like that. Not for a while.
Okay.
But I want it to be done end of April. And they're like, all right, well, based on the agreement that you put on your rental contract, what we can do is that we get like a 5 day window after you're out to clean up the property and everything. You pay for those 5 days. And then you're responsible for the rest of the lease. But here's the kicker. Like as soon as we are able to get new people and they sign and they're in, you're no longer responsible. So like my
Correct.
downside is I'm paying for like 3 or 4 months. My upside is like as soon as this thing is vacant, we're good to go. So I'm sitting here trying to decide like I think this is a good deal, but I know like rents are kind of down. I don't really know how many people are moving to Tampa, like how quickly rental listings are going.
Yeah.
So what's your perspective? Like I'm in Rocky Point. It's like a nice 1,400 square feet. Like, do you
Um,
think?
you mind me asking how much you're paying for
Yeah,
the?
yeah. I'm paying. I think the rent before utilities is like 2,300 for a true 2-2, probably like 1,000 or 1,200 square foot floor plan, first floor unit. Like it seems like a pretty good deal. And
I mean, you could rent a house for that amount of money. You
yeah,
could. You could probably a couple more bedrooms bigger. Depends again where.
yeah.
Um, but are you looking to? You already have another place that you want to move into, and are you gonna have to pay double rent while you're trying to rent this place out?
Shoot, I'm moving to my parents' basement. Are you kidding me?
Okay, well then, yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
I mean, I'm joking, but I'm actually being serious because I'm like going to be buying a house. So
Yeah,
I'll probably chill with them
yeah.
for a while.
No, I mean that makes sense. Are you trying to get out of it because you want to save money, or you're trying to buy something else to get to move into? I saw
Yeah.
you checking out that house. You said, "Oh, I saw you checking out that house with the pool the other day." Was that the one
Yeah,
you're
my
looking
house, you mean?
at? Was that your flip?
Yeah. That was
Oh,
mine.
sweet. That's awesome. I love
The,
it.
the irony is like we did great on it. I think the numbers are gonna look good all said and done. But also I'm like, dang, I don't think I can afford my own house.
Yeah. Yeah.
um,
No, I know with the where interest rates are right now, like
yeah,
you're better off. I mean, you're honestly better off finding an off-market deal, putting your own money into it, and then refining it out if you can quickly, and pulling
yeah,
out some cash. I mean, I would do it that way. But again, within where interest rates are, I mean, I don't, depending on what kind of house you're looking for and where, I know right now that's why a lot of people are renting, you
yeah,
know, and that's just kind of how it's been in Tampa for the last couple of years. People that, you know, don't need to buy a house right now are not. People that are looking to expand their families and they need more space and things like that, then people are definitely looking to buy stuff. So, I mean, it's up to you. I mean, at the end of the day, I think if you don't need a house, maybe buy something a little cheaper, maybe a condo,
I'll buy a house. I'll buy a house. I'm gonna buy a house in Eastern Washington.
Oh, you're moving?
Yeah, for most of the year.
Oh gosh. Okay. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Oh
I'm
yeah,
actually,
sure. Can you get a lot more for your money out there?
yeah. I mean, for me, it's like a better lifestyle fit, being near the mountains, smaller city.
Yeah.
I, I
Is
mean,
that where Rain City Capital is from?
Seattle, other side of the state, but
Okay, but
but
still in Washington.
yeah, not like really related,
That
but
makes
kind of
sense
cool.
with the Rain City capital. That's
Yeah,
true. Washington is, yeah.
yeah, exactly. And the irony is the east side is all desert. So people are like, dude, why would you move there? I'm like, doesn't really rain there very much. I don't.
I know. I know. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think
So
I have friends that are recently just buying right now in South St. Pete, and honestly, it's a great deal. And I tell people rather than renting, I always encourage people to buy because at least you're paying down your own mortgage. It's for yourself rather than for somebody else. So I'm never going to discourage someone from not buying. If you qualify, go for it. Do it. It's
yeah, I
get your
heard
foot in there.
I heard the oh man, who's the 10x guy? I can't remember his name right
Grant
now.
Cardone.
Yeah. Grant Cardone says some of the stupidest stuff that I hear on a regular basis. For instance, like very out of touch things. He'll say stuff like, "You know what the national average mortgage is right now? $4,500. You know what the average rent is? $2,000. In other words, you're an idiot if you buy a house." Like, okay, what's the average size of a house that people own? Oh, 2,000, 3,000 square feet. Okay. What's the average size of an apartment unit? 750 square feet.
Yeah, like I was gonna say like 1,000. Yeah.
Got it. What's the tax breaks for renting? Oh, none.
None. Yeah.
What happens to the money that you pay renting? Oh, you never get it back. Actually, it goes up every single year by more than insurance and property taxes on average. Okay, got it, Grant. You're just trying to raise money for your
For
syndication.
your syndications. Yeah. I'm trying to
He's
get
literally, his strategy is like, that down payment for your house, give it to me to buy a house.
right.
Give it to
Right.
me for my down payment on a multifamily.
Yeah, that's
So
why I
stupid.
was saying like the 2,300 that you're paying in your apartment. Like, yeah, I mean, okay, maybe a few $100 extra if you're gonna pay that in a mortgage. Like, I mean, have you looked into home like mortgages right now for kind of what you're looking for?
I need to file taxes first and then
Okay.
get pre-qualified. My income's all over the place, like,
Yeah.
and S corp income, but then it switched to 100% commission W-2. The kind
Trust
of
me, if someone is willing to give you a loan to buy a house, that's like leverage number one you should take.
yes,
Like that's a no-brainer. Like, let's get started there. Like, build
yeah,
equity like with your own home. Like, that's like number one.
yeah,
And that's where I say, like, I mean, it's better you get a house mortgage, like a home mortgage, than you get like a car note. You know what I'm saying? Like, that isn't gonna get you anywhere. Which
yeah,
is why I still drive my beat up, Toyota Corolla, because it's not going to put any extra money in the bank at this point.
yeah,
So
yeah. I mean, getting 5% down to like literally your input, 5% plus fees, right? Let's call it 7.5%. And your output is like if you took that every single month, your total in tax savings, your total in mortgage pay down, which skews because your mortgage pay down, the way amortization works, you pay almost nothing down initially, but
correct.
later on in the loan, you pay a lot down. So your mortgage pay down, your tax benefit, and potentially you can do depreciation. I'm not honestly sure exactly how that works on a primary. It probably depends on like homestead and all this other
Hmm.
stuff.
Hmm.
It's like when you put 5% down and you're saving that much on rent and getting these other benefits, it's like leverage 101. Like
Well,
you don't scale if you don't do like get returns on your inputs, right?
and my biggest thing is, like, my first property was a 4 unit here in Clearwater. So like it had a single
Did you
family
house
house.
hack it or no?
Yeah, I stayed in actually in one of the smaller units in the back, and not the front house. So it's a 3 bedroom, 1 bath in the front, and then 3 units in the back.
Wow.
And I updated the whole property slowly. It took me about like 8 months, 10 months to do it slowly. Like, got one
I
guy
mean,
out,
that's
next guy
slow.
out, updated it, put him in. I even had an eviction with the lady literally next door to me.
Oh
And
my gosh.
like, that's
Did you do the strategy where you're like, oh, I just helped manage this, or did they know you owned it?
No, no, they knew I owned it. I mean, it was kind of
Dang.
hard to get around that. It was my first one. And
Yeah.
honestly, I don't really, people say, I mean, maybe when I get, with higher up more units, things like that. But the first 25, I mean, everybody knows I own it. I own it and I run it. So
The first 25, as if it's
yeah,
I'm just small fry. These first
I
25 units.
honestly, like, you don't understand, like, in order to like really kind of see, I wouldn't even say I've seen everything, but I feel like I've seen everything in those first 25. I would really say like that has been like my biggest like learning lesson, right? And I've learned so much, and I hope that this year we can have the growth that we're looking for in adding
Mhm.
more units to the portfolio. But I also believe doing it responsibly and making
Yeah.
sure that, and none of my tenants that I have, they all have my contact number. Nobody abuses it. No, I've
That's
never had
great.
any major issues. Um, we have, good contracts, things in place, whatever. But people are very clear that, like, I'm fair at the same time. Like, um,
You're like that teacher, tough but fair. Like,
yeah,
give
I
it
mean,
that
at
point.
the end of the day, I think people love renting from people that they know also own it,
Yes.
because they can trust that they can reach out to someone, they're going to get a hold of them. We did have a property management company prior to me running it, and the biggest complaint was that they couldn't get a hold of someone.
Wow.
And in both ways it goes. You've got good tenants, you don't want to lose them, right?
Yeah.
And also, if you have a tenant that's not taking care of a property, you want property management to be able to catch that and see that, right? So there's a lot of other checks and balances we've put in place um, for that. But most of the time, I mean, the tenants are you know like, I think having good communication and having direct contact with them, I like, at least for me, I think it has been such an amazing learning lesson, because now moving forward, if I ever do put other people in place, like, which eventually I will as we add on more units, at least I'll know now, like, when someone's being honest about something or not. Like I know how to
Yeah.
navigate that situation. You know what I mean? And that's kind of where I say, like, my first 25 was probably like my biggest learning lesson in so many things, property management.
Yeah. Well,
So
I'll hit you up in like 15 years when I get my first 25.
no,
And
it's
then,
not gonna take you that long. Are you
and then,
kidding?
and then I'll let you know.
But like I said, I would highly recommend people getting a multifamily as their first property,
Yeah.
especially, I mean, regardless of whether you have a family or you don't have a family or spouse, whatever. I think just there's so much security in a multifamily, like especially like a 4 unit. I'm not a huge fan of duplexes, but I definitely think a tri or quad is
Yeah.
really like as your first property to buy to live in. I think is just excellent because you get the experience of being a landlord, but you're also on site typically,
Yeah.
right? You get to select, but again, it's good to like possibly leverage with somebody like myself who's done it to kind of, what pitfalls to avoid. And that's kind of what I did when I bought my property. I had a really good friend locally. While I was wholesaling, he was one of our really good big buyers. And I just built a really good relationship with him. And when I was going to buy this property,
Mm.
I had him walk it. And I said, "What do you think?" He's like, "Look, if you don't buy it, I'm buying it." He's like, "Buy this property," you know, and just kind of, again, constantly just was fortunate enough to have a friend that I could just call up and say, "Hey, what do you think about this?" Or kind of just run things by who has already experienced, he
Yeah.
already had like 20 some properties under his belt at that point. So,
Yeah.
um, again, just leveraging relationships and knowledge. I think that's your first place to start,
Yeah. And
Um,
why don't we end it with this? Because we're coming up on time here.
yeah.
Somebody's looking to lever up and level up, and they want to do some of the things that you're doing. How can they add value to what you're doing in your business? Like, what are you looking for that can get them a foothold in, a way to get your attention and get your help? How can they help you in your business right now?
I mean, honestly, I think everyone just has to come with, something that they think they can bring to the table, whatever it is, whether it's time, whether it's, you know, time, knowledge, money, whatever it is. I mean, there's a need for all three of those things, even if it's somebody who just says, "Look, I don't have money and I don't know anything. Could you use me somewhere?" Sure, absolutely.
Yeah.
If you have the willingness to learn and you want to be a part of it and you're willing to put the time in, absolutely. I actually was training with somebody. He was my trainer and he wanted to get involved and had no idea. He's like,
Hmm.
"What could I do?" And I was like, "Well, I need an assistant." Like, I just have like some random things to run. I had projects that I had going on at the time, like 4 to 6 projects going on at one time. And I was like, "I just need help. Like, I might need you to go pick up paint and I might need you to drop it off. And might need you to go take some photos. Like, could you do that?" He's like, "Yeah, absolutely. What time?" I'm like, "Well, tell me when you're off." And I was like, "I need a couple of hours." So literally that's what he did between like 3 and 6. He'd come and he'd volunteer, and he'd help. And then a
Yeah.
couple months later, I was like, "Okay, I think I need you a little bit more." Like, and then I would start paying him. So
Yeah.
again, it was like that was his foot in the door.
Yeah.
And soon enough, him and his girlfriend ended up buying a house, right? So like one thing led to the next. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, this was great. Thank you so much for
Thanks, Jared.
for coming on and letting me dive into some of your expertise. So this was fantastic. For anyone listening in, we'll repost this, and if you want to connect with Kush, they can reach you on your Instagram. Would that be
Yep.
best?
Yep. Khush_Italia. Yep. You can find me there.
Awesome. Well, thanks. That concludes this week's episode of Lever Up Your Life.